Perfecto. Comenzamos, José, ¿no?
Sí, Paul.
Genial. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this insightful webinar, The Benefits of Being a CFA Charterholder and the Outlook for 2027. I am Paul Rebolledo. I'm the CEO of Tandem Finance. As many of you know, Tandem Finance is one of the leading CFA exam providers across LATAM. Over the past 11 years, we have had more than 4,500 students in our classrooms from approximately 500 firms across the region. Turning to today's webinar, I have the enormous pleasure to introduce Rob Langrick once again. Rob is the Chief Product Advocate of the CFA Program and has had an impressive career in the CFA Institute. Previously, he led the educational division at Bloomberg and began his career as an equity research analyst at Morgan Stanley. Rob holds an MBA from Dartmouth University. Following Rob's presentation, we'll have a Q&A session, so please feel free to submit your questions through the Q&A box in Zoom. Without further ado, I will pass it over to Rob. Rob, thank you very much for joining us today, and the floor is yours.
Cool. Thanks very much for the nice intro, Paul. And I'm very excited to be with you with Tandem Finance, talking about my favorite subject, which is the CFA program. And hopefully I'll bring a little bit of data here as well to entertain you with. But let's dive in. So what I'm going to do, I am going to share my screen, and then we're going to bring up the presentation and we'll jump in. So give me 1 second just to share, and then we'll go. Okay. Let's dive in. So becoming a CFA Charterholder. So as Paul mentioned, in terms of my career, I started my career in equity research. I was at Morgan Stanley. I was doing banking, actually, M&A in 1998 as an intern. Then I joined a full-time HSBC in 2000 doing equity research. This was after my law degree in England in the 1990s. Then I spent about 5 years doing equity research, telecom sector in particular. I passed level 3 of the CFA program, so I finished it in 2002. So that's 24 years ago now, almost a quarter of a century ago. Wow. And then, yes, indeed, I went to Dartmouth in 2004 for my 2-year MBA at the Ivy League school. Great fun. And then after that, I worked in private equity for a while at Bain here in New York City. And then, indeed, I worked at Bloomberg, where I launched Bloomberg certification, which has had over 1 million people take it, by the way, Bloomberg Market Concepts. Very proud of that. And then I joined CFA Institute 8 years ago. I started overseeing the CFA program curriculum. Then I was general manager of the CFA program. And then after that, I spent the last 2 years talking to our most important stakeholders around the world. I'm a lifelong learner. So my Duolingo streak is 578 days learning Mandarin Chinese. That's quite fun. But I tell you that just to demonstrate the importance of lifelong learning. We're all going to live longer lives, we hope, and probably will. And so you can't just rely on your degree. My degree was in law in the 1990s. That is not very useful for me today. You have to keep learning. So anyway, that's me in a nutshell. Okay. In fact, I had someone ask me the other day, "Oh, you have a master's in scuba diving." I do not have a master's in scuba diving. That's actually a sort of a rank of scuba diver. It's not a master's program. Okay, CFA Institute then. For those people not familiar with CFA Institute, briefly, we're not for profit. And our mission is to drive education, ethics, and professional excellence. We are the largest affinity group of finance professionals globally. So if you look at finance credentials, we're by far the biggest one, with over 200,000 members. And we're very proud of our society network, in fact. So we have 159 societies, I believe, something like that. All around the world. We have several in Latin America, which I know is going to be several of you on the call from Latin America. And these societies, they really are events businesses locally. And they're the community you join once you finish the CFA program. I'll talk about them in a minute. Okay, let's talk about the CFA program. So this is our main product. It's the heart of what we do. So I'm going to answer a few basic questions. And I'm going to show you some new data as well that people have never seen before. So who's got the CFA charter? What sort of people do it? Why do they do it? What do we teach you? How can you take the CFA program? And then the latest innovations for 2027. That is brand new content that Tandem Finance, people in the community with Tandem are seeing for the first time ever. Okay, who's got the CFA charter? So I'd like to begin here. So this shows the overview of finance globally and the breakdown of CFA charter holders. Now, I did this when there were about 150,000. There are now just over 200,000, but the proportions are similar. So we think about four buckets. The buy side, people who invest money for others, pension funds and so on. The sell side, that's people who recommend buy sell recommendations like Nvidia or SpaceX or Tesla to the buy side. You've got corporations that can be CEOs, CFOs, Treasury Investor Relations, or private equity owners. And then you have advisors that will be things like the big four accounting firms or equity capital markets, people doing IPOs, or strategy consultants like McKinsey, for example. And now the yellow bubbles show you that the number of CFA charter holders who do each. So the biggest bucket is portfolio manager in the top left. So the biggest bucket, the most popular job is portfolio manager. And the second most popular job is the A in CFA is sell-side equity research analyst. So that will be equity and credit, like my first job at HSBC. But when you step back, you realize you think, wow, there's lots of bubbles everywhere. Why is that? And the reason for that is we're foundational. So the CFA program is really like a mix between a bachelor's and undergraduate in finance and a master's in finance, all combined together into one. And in fact, it's comparable to a master's in finance, or an MBA. So it's basically it culminates in you getting a master's degree type achievement, which is putting CFA after your name, 3 letters. In terms of where people work, people always love this. It's the league table. So the firm with the most charter holders is UBS with 2,500. Number 2 is JP Morgan with 2,200. Now, interesting question. Which building in the world has the most CFA charter holders on planet Earth? It's one of these 10 firms. The answer is JP Morgan. Because they opened their brand new headquarters here in New York City, just around the corner from me here, and it has 1,000 CFA charter holders in one building. So they go up and down the elevators every day. So think about that. I went to University of Nottingham in England. I'm sure many of you went to universities perhaps in Peru or neighboring countries and so on. So when I moved to America in 2004, remember I moved here in 2004, not many people have heard of University of Nottingham. It's a good school, not a great school. Okay. Now, people have heard of Nottingham Forest Football Club. They've heard of Robin Hood, the movie, the Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. They've heard about that, but they're not really heard about University of Nottingham. And so the further you go away from where you live, where you grew up as a child, the fewer people have heard of your university. So if you want to work in finance and when you travel around the world, you want people to know, about your academic achievements. The brand of your local university probably will not give you what you would like it to, because the further away you get, in your case, many of you from Lima, the fewer people will have heard of your university. Okay, that's certainly true of me coming to America with University of Nottingham. So when you think about these numbers, when I think about University of Nottingham, for example, I was at HSBC. Look at HSBC, 1,400 CFA charter holders. I bet you there are no more than 200 people at HSBC who went to my university, University of Nottingham. No more than 200, even less from Dartmouth College. Okay. So when you think about it, if you want a big network in the firm you work for, you want to be a CFA charter holder. It's going to have a much bigger network within the firm you join than any university you go to. So it's a really powerful networking tool. And also when you're talking to prospective clients, more people would have heard of it and be impressed with your academic background if you add the CFA program to your great undergraduate or master's you currently have or you're working towards. So you add it to your achievements, and then there's more things for people to recognize. And certainly when you go to Singapore or Dubai or London, many more people would have heard of CFA than any local university in Latin America is the truth of the matter. Certainly was true for me going to Nottingham. Okay, let me just show you quickly on Bloomberg what sort of people have the CFA charter. And certainly, Paul, feel free to propose a different country. I'll just show you Peru. But of course, I'm happy to show any country. But if I come to the people search database, people search on Bloomberg, PEOP, like so, I can type in here location. I can type in Peru, for example. There we go. And of the 4 million people on the database, you see 4,000 people are from Peru. And you've got some very prestigious people here. You've got chairman, you've got CEOs, founders, you've got CFOs, you've got another CEO, and so on and so forth. Lots of very important people here. But what's interesting is what you can do is you can say, you know what, I want to see the CFA Charterholders in Peru. So let's go to education, type in CFA and choose that. And bingo, we've got 39 CFA Charterholders now in Peru, in Lima. They're all in Lima. Look at that. So, and look at the list of firms. So if I sort that by alphabetical order, BBVA, Banco Central de Reserva del Perú, Banco Central del Perú, Fondos Sura, SAF, Prima, AFP, and so on. And look at the job roles: Chief Investment Officer, Chief Financial Officer, Chief Strategist, Senior Portfolio Manager, Head of EM Emerging Market FX, Co-CEO. Look, these are really important people. You know, look, Rodrigo Gonzalez is actually online right now, a senior FX trader. Look at him. So if you click on any of these people, you'll see, first of all, he's used his Bloomberg, he's online, did CFA 2024, born in Peru, and so on. There's his email. So it's a great networking tool there. And if you go to someone else, let's take someone really important, like let's look for a CEO here, or a CIO product. There we go, Jose Block, for example. What you often will find when you click in, you'll often find news stories on them. So there's an earnings call he was on here. He got the CFA in 2013. Look at that. Worked at BBVA and now, you know, Fondos now is Prima. So it's a great way to network with people and find impressive people. And also, if you, let's say you interview the Jose, after the interview, you can email him like this with a thank you note on Bloomberg, right? And then what that does, it shows Jose Block that, oh, wow, you're a Bloomberg user. He'll be really impressed by that. So anyway, you can see the power of the network there in Bloomberg just by choosing Peru. Of course, I could choose different countries. You could go on Bloomberg and see for yourself. It's a really prestigious network. Now, when people begin the CFA program, they often begin at an accounting firm, a big four accounting firm like PricewaterhouseCoopers or KPMG, right? 7% of people who start the CFA program work at the big four. Okay, but only 7%. That's the biggest proportion of any bucket, by the way, but it's only 7%. 6% are equity analysts, like I was at HSBC. But look at the diversity there. It's for everybody. Okay, just because you don't work in equity research or the big four doesn't mean it's not for you. Look at all those different jobs there. So it's really not for any one job role when you start. It's people who want to advance in their careers. That's who we serve. Okay, so why do people do the CFA program? And let's answer that question now. Okay, so first of all, what is the CFA program? So here we go. Looking on the left, you've got the best finance textbooks in the world, okay? This one here is called Fabozzi on Fixed Income. It's called the Bible of the bond market, okay? And it truly is. Everybody knows this is the most important book in the bond market, okay? Hull on derivatives is the most important book in the derivatives market. Everybody knows that. Ross on corporate finance is the most important corporate finance book. Mankiw Economics is one of the most important. Bodekane and Marcus on investments, one of the most important. Now, there's a problem, though. The problem, even though these are the best books in finance ever written, okay, the problem is there's no exam. You've got no way to prove to somebody you've read those books. You've got no way to prove to somebody that you've mastered the content, okay? So the CFA program, what we did, starting in 1963, we took these books, we said, okay, let's make our own version of these books. And now let's add an exam and make it really secure. So the CFA program, what it is, it's a very secure way to prove to people that you've read these books, you've mastered the content, and that you're smart and hardworking. That's what the letter CFA prove to people, okay? That's the service we provide. Nobody else provides this service apart from CFA Institute with the CFA program. It's a completely unique product. It was benchmarked to be comparable to a master's program. So here was the benchmarking study done in 2022 by ECTIS. You can look this up. ECCTIS is the name of the agency. And they said, yep, it's comparable to a master's in 12 really important markets globally. We did not do it for Peru, but when you look at the countries we did it for, including Brazil, you realize that actually we covered some of the most influential markets all globally. It's like having a master's, okay, but for $5,000 US, much cheaper than going to Harvard Business School. I think I paid $250,000 for my MBA, when you add together the fees and the living expenses, it's a lot of money in MBA, okay? You can get something similar here for about $5,000 with CFA program. Okay, now, it's really famous for its pass rate, as Paul knows. Here's the pass rate back to 1963 when we started, and there are 3 levels, okay? So now, how do we calculate pass rate? It's the percent of people who actually turned up on exam day who passed the exam. You have to turn up. So it excludes people who do not turn up, okay? And you look at it, you see that, oh, wow, about 50% of people who sit the exam pass the exam, only 50%. So when you think about it, you've got to take level 1, then level 2, then level 3. But when you think about it, wow, if there's a 50% chance of passing level 1, 50% level 2, 50% level 3, your chance of passing the first time, if it's a coin toss, is gosh, what is that? It's 12.5%. It's 1 in 8. Okay. So now, typically people will fail one level once if they're CFA Charterholders. Most of them, on average, have failed one level once. You take 4 exams. So actually, more like 1 in 10 people will actually end the journey successfully first time through. So it's really challenging. We're very famous for this. This is what drives the brand value, the prestige, because everybody knows it's really hard. That's why people respect it. Okay, I asked people why they did it. I spoke to over 300 people in 2020, I think it was. And here's what they told me. So most people told me they did it for signal value. Okay, what is signal value? Let's explain what signal value is. Okay. So CFA is a trademark, okay? We have robots look at the internet for people who say they're CFA who are not CFA. We write letters to them. We tell them to remove it. We protect it very vigorously, okay? So signal value means that you've actually passed all 3 exams in a row and you're a member of CFA Institute. You cannot fake that. So CFA is a hard currency like the euro or like gold, okay? Meaning you can't fake it. Basically. And so it's become this really efficient way to signal to people you're smart and hardworking, you're numerate, and so on. And by the way, the chance of you passing the exam randomly, there's no chance you can pass the exam randomly. If you just randomly chose answers A, B, C, you get 33%, but you need about 70% to pass. The only way to do that is mastering those books, okay? That's why it's a hard currency, CFA, after your name. A reason I did it, by the way, remember, I was a law student at University of Nottingham in England, where Nottingham Forest Football Club plays, okay? And I went to HSBC, remember, and did equity research. Let me let you into a little secret. When you go to HSBC and do equity research, for example, or let's say you go to BBVA and you're a fixed income trader, they're only going to train you on the asset class they hired you to do. HSBC only trained me on an equity valuation, okay? If you went to BBVA in Lima and did fixed income, they wouldn't train you on equities. They would only train you on fixed income. Not good enough. You have to know all the asset classes to be a good professional because they're all interrelated, the asset classes. And so if you are not lucky enough to go to a great university in Peru or a neighboring country, or if you didn't go to a great school, let's say in the USA or the UK or so on, then a finance program, you're not going to know this stuff. I went to Nottingham. I studied law. I did not know accounting. Accounting's absolutely essential in business and in finance, okay? I learned accounting in the CFA program. So if you didn't study finance at university and let's say you're a STEM majored engineering, you've got a problem. You have to learn finance to be in finance, okay? It's a very efficient, cost-effective way to basically go back and do a degree in finance when you didn't do a degree in finance. So it's amazing for that. That's the service it provided to me, okay? Okay, so what do we teach you? So level 1, it's all the basics. So the statistics you need in financing, information ratio and so on, and probability distribution functions and so on. It is probability density functions rather. Economic indicators, how to read company accounts, how companies are run. So all the basics at level 1 in terms of toolkits. Level 2 is all about valuing different asset classes. Okay, the different asset classes all have completely different valuation techniques. So you value an equity completely different from a way you value a bond. So we teach you the main valuation techniques for all asset classes at level 2, single security valuation. Level 3, you bring it all together and you construct a portfolio to meet your client's goals within the constraints they set. Maybe they don't want you investing in tobacco, for example. Okay. Then you do risk analysis on the portfolio. You'll report on the performance of the portfolio and so on. You'll rebalance the portfolio, all about portfolio management. And this, by the way, this is why the number one job role of CFA Charterholders, remember, is portfolio manager. We're training to be a portfolio manager. Okay. And that's how level 3 ends. Notice also ethics is all the way through the CFA program from left to right there, ethics. So we're very big on that. So when you have the CFA trademark after your name, you're a subject of CFA, we can take it away from you if you do something bad. Okay. So it signals ethics as well to the marketplace. It builds trust. So let's say you're talking to international investors in Lima, talking to international investors in Chicago or Boston, and you're CFA, they're going to be more trusting of you because they say, "Oh, you've done the CFA program." So it really is a trusted signal. And so it's great if you're doing international business outside the borders with other people, because many of them will be CFA charter holders or they've tried level 1. I won't dwell on the topic weights here. There's a mix of exam questions by subject. But let's talk about skills briefly. So we teach you the 10 subjects on the left-hand side, but within that, we teach you lots of skills. Okay, things like security analysis, portfolio management, private wealth management, and so on, and lots of foundational skills like data analytics, instruments and products, and regulation, and so on. So don't think just because that looks like knowledge on the left, it's just knowledge. It's also skills. We teach you lots of skills within the CFA program. Okay, how can you get the CFA charter? How can you take the exam? So here's the exam room. And we have an exam room in Lima, by the way. We have them all over the world in 450 cities, but we are accessible in your country. These rooms have 26 seats. They're all over Latin America, by the way, no matter which country you're in, Central and South America. 26 seats. You'll notice there's noise-canceling headphones on people are wearing. There's wood each side, so you can't look at your neighbor on the left or the right. Okay, you're just in this box, and you have a computer to do the exam. So it's a very good environment to doing an exam, basically. So the exam itself, each level, 1, 2, and 3, is approximately 4.5 hours. Okay. And there's a half-hour break in the middle. You have to take the half-hour break in the middle. Look, if you're watching the World Cup right now, I'm sure many of you are, there's a hydration break after 22 minutes, right? Hydration break. Okay. So we have a break after the first 2 hours and 14 minutes. Okay. Definitely take the break. After 90 multiple choice questions in the first half, you're going to need a break. You give your brain a break for half an hour, then you'll perform better in the second half. Okay. Take the optional break. Now, level 1, all level 1 is, it's 180 multiple choice questions, A, B, C. That's all it is. So people say to me sometimes, well, that sounds really easy. It is not really easy. Okay. If you randomly chose A, B, or C, think about it, 180 times, you're going to get a 33% raw score. It's just statistically impossible that you're going to be further away from 33%. Okay. But you need 70% to pass. Okay. You cannot randomly do A, B, C, C, B, E, B, 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 A, B, B, C, C, A, C, C, B. You can't do that. It won't work. Okay. To get to the 70%, you have to read those books. You have to practice. You have to do calculations. That's the only way. Okay. You cannot randomly pass it. In fact, only 2 people ever have got a perfect score at level 1. It was both during the pandemic, an Italian guy in Scotland and a lady in Singapore in 2021. No one ever has got a perfect score before them or after them. It was a pandemic thing. Okay. Now, level 2 is 88 questions. That's it. 88 questions, A, B, C. It's also 4.5 hours. So you say, hang on a minute. Why is that exam 4.5 hours if it's only 88 questions? The answer is, we give you more reading. Okay, we give you professional scenarios. You read about a scenario, about something that happened in the workplace, and then of each scenario, we actually 4 multiple choice questions. That's 88 questions, 22 scenarios, 4 questions each, 88 questions. Now, ask yourself the question, has anybody ever scored a perfect score at level 2 because it's only 88 questions? No, nobody's ever scored a perfect score at level 2. Okay, again, it's challenging, even though it's A, B, C. Okay, level 3 is different again. Half of it's those multiple choice questions, A, B, C, but half of it's constructive response. So you type a short answer. Don't worry, you only need to type out 50 words. They're very focused questions, and we want very short answers. We just want the answers. Maybe if there's mathematical working, put the working, but you can be really focused. Okay, innovations. This is a bit specially for you guys. Nobody's ever heard this before globally, so it's an exclusive for Tandem Finance. Okay. All right. So what do we have for 2027 for level one? The big changes at level one in 2027. So we changed 14% of quantitative methods at level one and 14% of equities. We have lessons called Equation Explorers. I'll explain that in a minute. We've updated our practical skills modules, and we now have Bloomberg functions across all three levels. So let's talk about that. So quantitative methods. Here's a summary of the key changes in quantitative methods. We've introduced key quant tools, and then talk about the nature of financial data, and we structure it on statistical concepts like estimation, simulation, and financial data science. So all brand new. These new quant tools we teach you at level one. To give some more meat on the bones, there's more Q&A, more knowledge checks. We've expanded coverage of estimation simulation, and we've taken portfolio optimization and expanded and aligned that with level one and level two, and so on. So we give people a foundation they can apply when they do the Python practical skills module. Also, we have a new reading on AI, large language models. So all about the language of AI and LLMs in the quantitative methods at level one for 2027. We also have equation explorers. So I'll show you what this is now. So essentially, in Microsoft Excel, we show you the relationships that work within certain key formulae. So let me actually show that to you. Oops. Oh, and by the way, I'll show that in a second. This means we no longer have quantitative methods pre-read for 2027. You don't need to do any pre-reading of quant methods anymore for 2027. We've removed it. So I'll show you equation explorers in a minute, I promise. On equities, we've actually expanded the equity coverage at level one. So we've got full coverage of single stock analysis, and the whole idea here, we're helping people who do a student managed investment fund on campus to get ready for the CFA Research Challenge, basically, with level one only. It used to be you had to do level two as well, but now you're okay with just level one. So we've substantially updated it. Lots of more real world examples. We ground equity valuation and forecasting, and we've got more on scenario analysis with probability weighting. We've also updated the industry company analysis framework of Porter's Five Forces, and we also now cover a lot more about equity research reports. So initiation notes and activist short sellers. Equation explorers, what are they? As promised. So they really bring to life things like time value of money, for example, some things which can be quite hard for people new to finance. So what happens is you change the inputs and you see how the outputs change, and it helps you understand the relationships within that formula. That's how it works. It uses Google Sheets, and we have 9 problems. So here's what we cover: time value of money and fixed income, implied return and growth, and cash flow additivity. So there are 9 things to play with equation explorers in level one only. So here they are. Here's a visualization of how they work. So for example, on mortgage cash flows, you see the mortgage principal going down here, for example, through time. Lots of cash flow diagrams, tree diagrams, binomial trees, and so on. So you flex the inputs, and you can see how they change the outputs. So it really helps you understand the concepts within these formulae. Here it is in the electronic curriculum. So it's in line. So as you go through in a straight line through the electronic curriculum, you see equation explorers. We've also updated ethics across all 3 levels, actually. Why? Because there's a new standards of practice handbook with version 12. That's now fully woven in. Bloomberg integration. We've now launched level 3. So let me explain this. Throughout the whole CFA program now, we teach Bloomberg when you're doing CFA program. We do not test on Bloomberg, by the way, we just teach it. Here we go. So we used to have 94 functions at level 1, 45 at level 2. We now have, ta-da, more. 103 at level 1, 51 at level 2, and 50 at level 3. So we've integrated, we've actually added Bloomberg functions to level 3 and increased the number at level 1, level 2. So you learn more Bloomberg now than ever before when you go to the CFA program. Really, really cool. Here it is, by the way. Just a crowd-pleasing slide. So you look at all these screens you learn from Bloomberg. Really, really cool. So you get to learn the marketplace's gold standard data platform as you go through the gold standard finance learning program, basically. Okay. Oops. I think I think that ends it. Let me just check that real quick. Yes, there we go. So, Paul, back to you for Q&A.
Excellent, Rob. Thank you so much. I think it has been a very insightful presentation, and something that I could take on your presentation, some main ideas. Going comparable to the Master in Finance, the CFA is more cost effective.
Yep.
Secondly, networking.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
belong to an exclusive club, and you can, and this is very noticeable when you show the names at Bloomberg.
Yep.
Third, signaling, show signaling to employers. That's
Yep.
the main issue. It's a unique product and very straightforward to show
Yep.
how your efforts come true. Fourth, the CFA talks about different issues from fixed income, valuation, risk management, corporate finance, etc. So basically, it covers most of the ecosystem in the financial industry. Fifth, right now, I would say that the outlook for 2027 is more practical in the curriculum, in the CFA curriculum. It introduces more illustrative concepts. Instead of memorizing, you have to understand those concepts, and it's more easy. It's easier to integrate those concepts in the illustrations that you have shown, and it's making more practical. The curriculum is making more practical and more oriented towards Bloomberg also.
Yep.
So I would say that these are my main takeaways. Rob, we have a bunch of questions for the audience that were sent previously. So one of the main questions that I have is basically, in this new reality where AI is expected to play an increasingly important role for professionals in general, how can AI support individuals who are studying for or already hold the CFA designation? Could it eventually replace the need for studying or obtaining the certification? I think that's kind of challenging questions, and I would like to know your opinion about it.
Yeah, my opinion, definitely not. I'll explain why.
Mhm.
So we hear this a lot from very senior people who say definitely not. Basically, the new tools like Gemini and so on, Claude, they really expand what one person can do. So the more experienced you are, the more you know the right questions to ask, the more deadly you are, basically. But you have to know what you're doing. You can't just randomly, you wouldn't know what questions to ask it. You wouldn't know what was interesting, what was important, unless you have the experience. But let me go back first of all to young people. So, first of all, on studying, I was in Asia 2 weeks ago in Japan and Korea, and then I was in Singapore weeks and weeks before that. What young people are doing is really, really cool, is they're using things like Gemini. They take a screenshot from I heard a lady in Japan, she took a screenshot of the digital curriculum, a question she found difficult. She put it into the screenshot into Gemini and said, "Hey, explain the answer to this question in Japanese." And it was just incredible the way it just did it. And so people are now using Gemini to help them with study, which is kind of really cool, I think. So or someone in Singapore said, yeah, someone said, "Hey, explain to me convexity like I was 10 years old." Because AI is really good at simplifying things and summarizing things, and people love that aspect to it. Now, so I think it definitely can help you in that regard if something's really confusing you. Although, of course, there's no substitute for working in a group of people with a prep provider to get really specific on question matters and so on and problems you're facing. I think though, as you get in the workplace, basically the value of foundational learning is going up. So people say, "Oh, well, AI can pass the level one." It's completely irrelevant. When you're in a client meeting, just the fact it can pass, great. That's congratulations to AI. It means nothing for you. Why? Clients want to meet humans. You can't ever blame a robot for something. They want someone to blame when things go wrong. You can only blame a human, right? When a client has questions and wants to talk to someone, they don't want a robot walk in their office. They want a human walk in their office. And if you're in their office or on a Zoom like today, right, then you have to know questions immediately, or people lose trust in you. And so that's evidenced by just knowing the basics, not making basic mistakes, basic errors. So that's why foundational learning is really, really important. And in fact, I think that we will have agents working for us, so AI agents. That's true. Some things will be automated, but if anything, it'll make people in their mid-career even more effective. So, I think there's a fallacy here. So we saw this in 2019. I remember in 2019, just before the pandemic, there was a stat that said, "Oh, passive money overtakes active money in money management globally." And I thought, wow, that means that finance is going to die and everything's automated, blah, 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 blah. There'll be less jobs, blah, 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 blah. Just like they're saying today, by the way. Do you know what happened? Exactly the opposite happened. And do you know why? Do you know why that happened? The reason why that happened is basically index investing democratized investing. It opened up investing for many more people. So yes, while fees kept going down, it enabled many more people to save, and AUM just carried on booming like that. It's like the irony with people say, "Hey, what job should I do?" A young person, I always give them three answers. I say, do fixed income, do performance measurement, or do ETFs. Why do I say that? I say fixed income because look at governments. Governments cannot control themselves from borrowing more and more money. And only Argentina is trying to address the problem seriously. Every other country is like borrow, borrow, borrow. That just means fixed income is going to go get more and more assets under management. Okay, become a fixed income trader. Performance measurement, because not many people know about that job role. There are fewer applications, and it's a great way into a financial institution. And you learn a lot in that role, and then you can move internally. It's just a secret way in. And ETFs, wow, what a story. So when you look at the growth of ETFs, it grew 30% last year in
amazing.
AUM. It's 17, well, it depends how you count, $24 trillion now. $24 trillion is up 30%. So as a young person, always look for something growing very fast. I remember I was a telecoms analyst at HSBC. Why? Well, in the year 2000, telecoms was booming. They were giving out the spectrum for all these things at the time, actually 3G spectrum. We're now onto 5G, right? But they were selling it for billions and billions of pounds and dollars at the time. And it was booming. Go and do something booming to start your career. I don't do that. I haven't done that for years. It doesn't matter. When you start your career, go to something booming. Do ETFs, right? Okay? Do fixed income. But then you can move from there, but do something booming. So anyway, I think to answer your question, AI will probably generate more jobs over time. It'll automate a few, and that's what I think there'll be job losses, but it will create new jobs as well. And in fact, it's already created lots of new AI jobs, quite frankly. So employment's already gone up with AI. It's ironic because everyone said no, it'll go down. I think it's going to go up.
Exactly. AI can help. In some sense, they can remove some jobs, but they can create new jobs.
Exactly.
And humans are necessary. Always.
Yeah, and if you talk about your savings for retirement, you need a human. You're only going to trust a human. You're never going to trust a robot.
Yeah. Yes. It's the matter of the human in the loop. You always need a human just to monitor what's going on. Okay. Rob, we have another question. Perhaps you have heard about these questions many times before. When's the best time to start studying for the CFA program? And this is something very relevant. 10 years ago, when we started at Tandem Finance, the average age was 30. Right now, it's 24.
Yeah.
Now we have young people, because as you know, Tandem Finance also teaches at the Universidad del Pacífico for undergrad students. And actually, their pass rates are higher than people near the 30s. So what's your take about that?
Well, the answer is start it as early as possible, partly because the pass rates are higher. Okay. We find that, in the 1950s and 1960s, NASA, the space agency, used to fire people on their 23rd birthday automatically. The people who did the calculations to get to the moon. And the reason they did that, they realized young people, the mathematics ability crests at 23. Then it starts going down. So they didn't really want people after the age of 23 because they're the best at mathematics. So basically, that's also true of students today to CFA program. It's a mathematical exam. Half the questions are math. So do it before you're 23, right? You're going to have an advantage just because of your age. So there's that, but also you'll get more value out of it because as a young person, what you don't have enough experience. But everyone's looking for experience. Now you can get experience by doing CFA program, but when you get an opportunity to do an internship, you want to know accounting day one. You want to know modeling day one. You don't want to wait until you're 23 to start that. So that's why I say as early as possible. And in fact, I talk to lots of charter holders. I say, what's the biggest thing you would do differently? And the number one answer by far, I would have started CFA program earlier. Definitely true for me. I started when I was 23. I wish I'd known accounting a couple of years earlier. I didn't. Start as early as possible. I think the one thing where it gets difficult is studying during term time. You might want to take the August exam, okay? Because then you study over the summer, and then you don't overlap with your time at a university. That's just one thing to think about. I think it's better if you study over the summer as a student.
Totally agree, Rob. Really, I can tell about my own experience. I finished my MBA when I was like 25, and I was thinking about not studying anything else. And all of a sudden, the chairman of the Central Bank of Peru told me that if we want to, I was working on the international resource management area, and he told me, if you want to stay here, you have to have the credential, the CFA Charterholder. So everybody started to study in 2007, and I obtained a CFA Charter in 2009, finally, after 3 years of direct study. But I really strongly recommend to start early. And of course, early you are free. You don't have this kind of perhaps a family also. You have to balance. You can balance your life. So
Exactly.
Totally agree.
Yeah, life gets in the way when you have more obligations when you get older.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
We have another question about how do you see the CFA curriculum evolving in the next 5 years, Rob? We've seen that in the last few years, we have seen a more practical vision, hands-on work, like trying to match the employer's demand, trying to be more practical and Bloomberg oriented.
Yeah.
It has changed a lot since I studied. Topics have changed a lot. We have private markets, we have AI, and so on. So how do you envision that the CFA curriculum 5 years from now?
Well, we're going to put AI throughout the whole curriculum. So we'll teach you different use cases of AI. It's because AI is used all across 10 topic areas, right? So you might use it in portfolio management to look for risk factors in the portfolio. You might use it in equities to say, hey, point out the weaknesses in my equity research note. These are all things people do today with AI, right? So we're going to put those all throughout the CFA program. Obviously, we're always looking for the new trends happening in the market. So the big trend now, one of them is the prediction markets, Cauchy and Poly market, right? So back in February, March, April, the most important thing to understand was what's the chance of a ceasefire in the Middle East, okay? The only place you could get that was by going to Cauchy or Poly market. There was a contract you could trade, which had a percent likelihood of a ceasefire, and it was the only thing the market had to go on. And so basically the whole oil price and inflation expectations linked to that. So it's a very important estimate coming from prediction markets, right? So there's always new things in finance like that. Another new one I love is that became hot in May was the cost of compute. There's a new index, the cost of compute, right? And it actually drives all these stocks like Nvidia, and it drives the memory chip stocks. It's incredible. And so you always have to be on top of which data is now driving the market today. So I'd say the cost of compute index, and also, look at the new AI models. Like when the new versions come out, often the market jumps up when the new version comes out if the model's good. So you have to understand the latest models coming from Anthropic and coming from OpenAI and so on, and Google. So there's always something new to understand in finance, and we're always following those sorts of trends. I would say in the next 5 years, you're going to see more practical skills modules as well. Private wealth just keeps getting hotter. There's more and more wealth in the world. There are more and more jobs in private wealth, being a relationship manager. And so we obviously want to serve that. Private markets keeps getting hotter and hotter, even with the SpaceX IPO. There are more and more private companies globally interested in allocating to private markets. That has a completely different language. Okay, so yes, we have the pathway for level 3, but there's more we need to do in terms of getting deeper. There are things like continuation funds and evergreen funds right now. There's always something new we have to cover. So yeah, more AI, more private markets are the two big things.
Perfect. AI, private markets, data-driven process.
Yeah,
Perfect.
AI, yeah, exactly.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. Perhaps I can mingle both of them. Do you have any statistics or documentation that reflects changes in compensation due to CFA in some countries? And do you have measures of documentation of career impact due to CFA Charterholder?
So we have the compensation survey when you're a member of CFA Institute. You have to be a CFA Charterholder, but then you can go to your country, let's say Peru or Colombia, and you can see how much people are paid who are CFA Charterholders by your country. You can slice by job role, like portfolio manager. You can slice by seniority. It's really amazing data. So you can see that in your country when you're a CFA Charterholder. In terms of career impact, well, we do lots of surveys internally at CFA Institute, and we do see a strong career impact. Some funds will give a bonus. There's a fund in Kuwait that gives a gold coin when you pass each level. So there are these bonuses that are sometimes around the world are kind of interesting. But yeah, so often people get a pay increase. They'll get a pay increase with it, a promotion. But most important of all, it's going to help you move job. So, and the way that works is it'll give an edge to your CV resume. You have an edge all of a sudden you didn't have before, which helps you get selected for interview, basically.
Perfect. Yeah, definitely. In my experience, I have been this. I used to be the CIO of two banks, of Scotia Mutual Funds and BBVA, and CFA was one of the main reasons to get a salary increase and a promotion.
Yeah.
And that's most of the trend here in Peru, at least. And it's very recognizable. And also the regulatory requirements require to have at least the CFA level 1 to work in the financial industry. So this is a must, and people get more aware of that in the undergrad career, in their undergrad stage.
Oh, well, I was not aware about it being required in Peru to work at level 1.
Yeah.
Required.
Yes. It's a requirement. It's a requirement to work in a pension fund, in the mutual fund industry, in different sectors in the financial industry.
Interesting.
So this is for a regulatory requirements like that. It's already like more than a decade here in the ecosystem.
That might explain why Peru is the number 3 country in Latin America. So it's number 1 Mexico, number 2 Brazil, number 3 Peru for CFA.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. And you know, Rob, Peruvian capital market is not so big or huge as Chile or Argentina or Mexico, but we have more CFAs in the region. That we are the third, as you said, we have the third largest CFA number in the region.
Fascinating.
I wanted to ask you something. I don't know if you see this trend around the world. The demand for CFA level 1 is huge. But level 2 and level 3, it decreases a little bit. I don't know if this trend is already there or you have seen a reversal of this trend in the last few years.
So I mean, well, you mentioned in Peru, level 1's a requirement. Well, if level 2 is not a requirement, then of course you might see fewer level 2. Look, it's like let's say you do a long hike in America, the Pacific Crest Trail or the Appalachian Trail. People drop out. You can't add in. You can only drop out, right? People drop out because their knee breaks, their ankle breaks down, their whatever, they have blisters. It's natural to lose some people along the way, right? We do see in countries like China, for instance, where there's a big benefit of doing level 1. You can live in certain places you can't live if you're not a CFA Charterholder, for example, in China, believe it or not. So yes, that sort of incentive will disincentivize people to do level 2 because they're like, well, I got the benefit I needed, so why bother? In India, you'll have people say, I'm level 1 cleared, I'm level 2 cleared, and they will not go on to become a CFA Charterholders because to them it's good enough just to tell an employer I cleared level 3, right? So they don't value the letters after their name the way people do in the Americas, but it's just a cultural difference where to them it's all about passing the exam and not about the signal value of having CFA after your name. So there are differences, certainly, but then also, I mean, the biggest reason people don't go to level 2 is they fail level 1. So, and when we look at that trend globally, often it links to PISA mathematics scores. So let's say, take in Africa, for instance, the PISA scores, the mathematics scores of teenagers is quite a bit lower in Africa. That's a problem because remember, half of all questions on the CFA exam are mathematics questions. So if your country has a low mathematics rating, there's not much you can do about that.
That's not much you can do.
Mathematics is the issue. So that problem began years before we ever met them. It's the mathematics standard of those countries. Whereas, let's say in South Korea or Finland, there's extremely high mathematics PISA scores, meaning they find the exam easier. So mathematics.
You're referring that there's like an idiosyncratic factor according to each country or each region.
Yep, exactly. Well, mathematics, quite simply. The country has to be good at mathematics, yeah. So that's a big one. So, which is why, by the way, we're now thinking about maybe partnering with the International Mathematics Olympiad. So you find the kids who are best at mathematics, planet Earth, in all countries, regardless of the PISA scores. So we'll go to some African countries and we'll find the best people at mathematics, you know. So
perfect. We have another question about the difference between the CFA and other credentials like the FRM or the CAIA.
Yep.
What would you say is the main difference and the main and the remarking factor that differentiate the CFA in comparison to other credentials?
So FRM, there are 3 differences. FRM is just for risk managers. Remember, all those yellow bubbles, we're for lots of job roles. FRM is for 1 job role. FRM is 2 exams and we're 3 exams. Okay. So there's a big difference. We have written answers level 3. They only have multiple choice answers, FRM. So they're the big differences with FRM. Also with FRM, if you don't pass level 2 within 5 years of passing level 1, you lose your level 1. You got to go back.
You lose your opportunity. Yep. Yes.
We do not have that with CFA. So they're big differences. I'd say FRM is great though. If you want to be a risk manager, it's a really good thing to do, clearly.
Yeah.
But they're the differences. I think also FRM level 1 is a bit easier than CFA level 1. I passed FRM level 1 without studying. so yeah, I thought it was quite easy. FRM level 2, harder though.
It's harder. Yeah.
CAIA, the difference with CAIA is, well, we have private markets level 3, but they go into more detail. Okay. Also, they focus on the limited partner, not the general partner, whereas we focus on the general partner more than the limited partner. They are a 2-level exam. Their pass rates are really high. I want to say their pass rates in the 60% range. So it's got less signal value. I would say, argue CAIA. The average age of someone with CAIA is a lot older than CFA. People tend to do CAIA after CFA. In fact, 40% of people with CAIA also have CFA. So there's a big overlap between the two, CAIA and CFA. But no, CAIA is a great product. It's a great learning experience. If you're really serious about about alternative investments rather. And yeah, you want to have a job in an investment consultant in particular, or a pension fund or an allocator or in particular, then yeah, it's a great thing to do.
Excellent. Well, as you said, CFA covers most of the ecosystem in the financial industry, from asset management to auditing, commercial side, private banking, valuation, and so on. So it makes like that you cover most of the financial ecosystem with the CFA. Finally, I would like to ask you if there is what would you recommend a young student for starting the CFA? What kind of secret sauce would you tell us about how to follow the CFA exam, the CFA preparation, and in terms of balancing their work and their personal life? What would be your opinion about that?
Well, I think you need to have a study plan and stick to it. I would recommend getting up 1 hour earlier in the morning and do 1 hour of study. So that's a little secret bit of time you can get back there. I'd recommend studying at lunchtime in the office if you can. go and hide and have a sandwich and study for 1 hour or 45 minutes. I would recommend taking a week vacation off work, for sure, and studying. And then towards the exam, I would recommend get as many mock exams as you can. They don't have to be CFA Institute. They can be from anyone. And then let's say your exam's at 8 o'clock in the morning, one morning on a Monday. Okay, then we'll go eight days back. Maybe you don't want to work on Sunday, but start the Saturday a week earlier. Do an exam at 8 o'clock in the morning. Do the exam for 4.5 hours, have a break, and then read all the answers because you'd have gotten some questions right for the wrong reason. Okay, so you're actually studying when you're doing that. But then you do that 8 times. So you do Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It was 6. Then you do Saturday, then you do Monday. Let's say your exam's on Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Think about it. It's Tuesday, 8 o'clock in the morning. You're in that exam room. It feels like day 9. It's the same as every other day. And so you're completely not nervous sitting that exam. You've removed all the nerves, right? Which is a big plus for you in the exam room. So definitely that. But don't do mock exams until the end. It's a waste. You should be studying all the way up until you start mock exams. Only start mock exams in the last 2 weeks.
Exactly. That's exactly what we recommend on Tandem Finance. We really share the same opinion. Start studying in the morning. The morning is really fresh. Where your brain is fresh, so you feel more comfortable studying in the morning, understanding the concepts, exercises from the very beginning. Do mock exams. That's really key. And basically, you have like we say in finance, there's no free lunch. So it means sacrifice also, sacrificing some personal life, but in order to get a better goal, a more oriented professional life. So that's what we are achieving. Well, Rob, I think we're running out of time. I thank you very much for your valuable insights in this valuable presentation. I think it has been very insightful for us. And just a quick news for our audience. We are going to sponsor we're one of the sponsors of the visit of Aswath Damodaran in August, together with the CFA CFA Society here in Peru. So it's on August the 12th. You're invited. Please follow us in our social media, and you will know more news about that. And thank you for the audience. Thank you for staying with us. And Rob, thank you again for your time and patience.
Cool.
Bye-bye.
Pleasure. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Next week.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.